Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Broker Briefing, Australia's premier digital platform for brokers and investors, live streaming video presentations from ASX-listed companies. I'm Jane Morgan, and thank you for joining me today for our August Mining and Resources Investor Webinar. Today, we'll be joined by 4 companies: Dreadnought Resources, BlackEarth Minerals, Anova Metals, and Cobre Limited. So up first, we are joined by Dreadnought Resources with the ticker code DRE, a West Australian mineral exploration company. To tell us more, today I'm joined by Managing Director, Dean Tuck. Good morning, Dean.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you. Besides my laryngitis, I'm fine. So excuse everybody on the call as well. But Dean, let me bring up your presentation. When you're ready.
All right. Thank you for that. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about Dreadnought Resources. We'll get straight into it as we only have a short amount of time. So I'll skip through the next 2 slides. So company snapshot, what I want to talk about today, we have 3 main companies. Lately, our success has been driven by Mangaroon and the rare earths there. And our value is really underpinned not only by the rare earths at Mangaroon, but also our first quantum joint venture there for the nickel, copper, and PGEs, and also our copper, cobalt, silver, gold discoveries in the Kimberley that we made last year. So I'll talk mainly about Mangaroon in the next couple of minutes, but also wanted to highlight that we do have other projects that have the significant scale opportunities for us. So moving on to the next slide. Mangaroon is located in the Gascoyne region near Exmouth and Geraldton. Move on to the next slide, please. And we have a sort of first mover land package on the Proterozoic Gascoyne mobile belt. We did a joint venture early on with First Quantum over a few tenements over what we call the money intrusion. And the rare earths sit on 100% on ground of Dreadnought, so there are no joint ventures there. And we're right next door to Yangibana. We have similar ironstones to Yangibana, and we also have the potential for carbonatites similar to Mount Weld and Mountain Pass. And I just want to highlights that the First Quantum joint venture is moving on in the background, and our rare earths 100% owned, and we'll continue to advance those as we speak. So moving on to the next slide. So we have a large scale opportunity here. We've said from the beginning, if you like Hastings, you'll love the Yin project. We have ironstones very similar to what Hastings is developing next door. And we also have the potential for carbonatite intrusions C1 to C5. We've already confirmed mineralization outcropping at C4. And we'll be drilling that here in the next few weeks. We've already confirmed, similar to Yangibana, high grades and high NdPr ratios. We confirmed that there's monazite in this. And before we even put a drill hole in, we've already confirmed that we can produce a high quality monazite concentrate using the exact same flow sheet that Hastings has developed for the Yangibana operation. And at the moment, we are in the middle of what is quite a substantial drill program. Our first drill holes at Yin, which we'll talk about in a second, certainly exceeded expectations. We've drilled about 120 drill holes to date, and we have another probably 25,000 meters of additional drilling planned by the end of this year. And that program seems to grow as every week that passes. So on to the next slide. The first drill line at Yin, again, we had a small outcrop, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner with Ross Chandler. We had no idea what this was going to turn into. We know from Hastings Yangibana operation next door that the ironstones average 2 to 3 meters width with variable plunge, and they can get up to 10, 20 meters. So we didn't really expect to hit 20 to 35 meters of high-grade rare earths in our first drill holes. To put this into perspective, the highest grade and thickest intercept at Hastings Yangibana operation of 14 years of drilling was 24 meters at 1.8% total rare earths, and we exceeded that in a number of our first drill holes. It's very exciting. First drill holes, it certainly captured the imagination of the market, and we certainly haven't stopped drilling. As we'll see on the next slide, we have confirmed thick mineralized ironstones over 3 kilometers to date. We are almost finished with that infill drilling over the first 3 kilometers, and that will go into a maiden torque resource, which we will put out before the end of this year. It's important to note that that 3 kilometers is just simply where we started drilling, and Yin remains open in all directions along strike and at depth. Moving on to the next slide. It also doesn't stop at Yin. So we will be moving on to Y3 and the carbonatites immediately after that, but those are only the radiometric and outcropping anomalies that we have ground truth to date. We have over 66 other targets identified. To date, we have only visited 19 of those, 13 of which are proven to be outcropping mineralization. Not all of these will be guaranteed outcropping mineralization. However, a number of these will, and we have the surveys and approvals lined up for September. So if these are, if we do identify additional mineralized outcrops here in the next month or two, we will have them drilled by the end of this year. So we see not only the potential to become the other half of Hastings Yangibana with the ironstones, we potentially have the carbonatite intrusions that can completely change the scale opportunity here. That puts us in competition with things like Linus, Mount Weld, Mountain Pass, Nolan's Bore, Cummins Range, and the rest. And if these additional ironstones come up, then there's certainly a significant scale opportunity here to change the fortunes that we have in the Gascoyne region. Moving on to the next slide. In the background, we have the First Quantum Mangaroon joint venture. So First Quantum will be continuing with this work over the next few months, doing some deep EM and continuing to chase what they believe and what we see as high tenor nickel, copper, PGE sulfides, looking for a massive sulfide target within the Money intrusion. We've only just started here. Our first 12 holes, 9 of them hit mineralization. So it's a very fertile intrusion, and there's a lot of work to be done. And we're looking forward to working with First Quantum as they continue to fund this work. In addition to Mangaroon, on the next slide, we also have the Taraji Yampi project up in the Kimberley. This time last year, we announced a discovery in our first drilling undercover at Orion. High-grade copper, silver, gold, and cobalt massive sulfides. And over the last couple of months since that discovery, end of last year, we have been doing some auger drilling. Moving on to the next slide. That auger drilling has the opportunity to unlock a lot of additional value for the Kimberley project in that it'll identify and prove up the Orion and Grants area to be a camp, looking at analogs like Vanco over in Brazil. What we see here is a hydrothermal related system similar to Cloncurry and Mount Isa. And what we're looking for is Orion's friends. Orion and Grants are proven mineralization. We'll continue to develop those into a resource, and we want to find additional ore bodies within the system. Already, we've identified 5 or 6 Orion lookalikes within the primary Orion trend on similar lithostructural settings. And then as we expanded that auger program down to the south into new areas, we've identified Thunderer and Vanguard, new outcropping high-grade Gossin sticking out of the ground, which is extremely encouraging. We're going to be back up there in September, extending that auger program and also extending that auger program over other areas with similar lithostructural characteristics to Orion, and identify a very strong pipeline of targets that we will be looking at drilling this time next year, following our substantial program on the rare earths at Mangaroon. Moving on to the next slide. So we see our catalysts for the next 12 to 24 months. We have steady news flow coming out of Mangaroon. We've drilled 120 holes. I think we're up to over 8,000, 10,000 samples at the lab as we speak. It's hard to keep track of them. They'll be coming through in the next couple of weeks. And we will see consistent news flow every few weeks coming out on assays from the rare earth drilling. At the end of this week or by this weekend, we should be done with the infill drilling at Yin, and we will move on to Y2, Y3, and the C1 to C5 carbonatites. So we'll see us potentially announcing additional discoveries in addition to Yin, really highlighting the scale of the opportunity at Mangaroon in the rare earth space, as well as the additional anomalies that we'll be reviewing, which could turn into additional Yins, Y3s, or carbonatite targets. We'll deliver that Yin resource before the end of this year, but the drilling after this infill drilling at Yin will be focused on proving up scale. And then once we have a number of discoveries, we will pursue those and convert those to resources as they permit. We will also have the Mangaroon work in the background and the additional auger results really all paving the way for us to get up to the Kimberley this time next year. So for the next 12 months, we have a lot of work and a lot of assays coming out on the rare earth space, and then we'll be moving up to the Kimberley this time next year to make some additional discoveries of copper and cobalt up there. So takeaway message, strong news flow. We have significant scale opportunity at Mangaroon of the rare earths. Not only could we turn into the other half of Hastings Yangibana operation, we could also have the potential of Mount Weld and Mountain Pass style carbonatite intrusions. We have the First Quantum joint venture, the additional work going on there, completely funded by First Quantum, the Kimberley work, additional discoveries of Orion lookalikes, Central Yilgarn, the opportunity for some commercial reviews going on in the background. And of course, we have the team that continues to deliver the operational success in the field, and the board that can certainly look at ways of crystallizing value for our shareholders. Thank you very much.
Dean, what a great presentation. You've definitely been busy, and we're looking forward to seeing all that news flow that's coming out. A few questions that have come through, one actually from a Twitter follower. So with the drilling that's been completed to date, or by the end of 2022, when can shareholders expect results?
So we are hoping, we're at the mercy of the labs at the moment with the assay results. So I've been expecting the first batch this week. As soon as we get those results any week now, we'll see the second batch. And then every couple of weeks after that, until the end of the year into next year, every couple of weeks, there'll be another batch of samples coming through. So, and then for the resource, as soon as we get the infill drilling on the results from Yin, we will be putting out that resource within the December quarter is what we currently think. So there'll be continuous assay results from Yin over the next 2 to 3 months. And then our drilling at Y3 and the carbonatites will see additional assays continue to flow through the end of the year and into next year.
And also, so what excites you most about the Mangaroon project?
What excites me the most? I think what we've seen with the rare earths is just what we're seeing right now is what we've seen in the lithium space before. You have a major motive in the world of going through decarbonization and electrification, and the step change required in supply and the increase in demand in order to create the batteries, in order to create these metals, or I guess to create the magnets and everything else that we need for electrification, is going to really drive a lot of interest in this space, in addition to the geopolitics. And we see, I guess, a real clear line of sight of not only delivering additional discoveries, but also resources next to a mine that's going into operation down the road from Iluka, who's built a rare earth refinery for monazite, which is exactly what we have at Yin, and also what you see at Linus building in Kalgoorlie. So not only in past, like Linus does, you have to ship things overseas. Going forward the next 2 to 3 years, there's actually going to be an inbuilt Western Australia processing facilities and a whole bunch of customers that will be looking for a high-grade monazite concentrate like we're proving up at Yin right now.
Well, Dean, thanks again for the great presentation, and we look forward to hearing further updates.
Thank you very much.
So next up, we have a presentation from BlackEarth Minerals with the ticker code BEM, a vertically integrated graphite developer. To tell us more, I'm joined by Managing Director, Tom Revy. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Jane, how are you?
Great, thank you. Let me bring up your presentation.
Well, welcome everyone to the update on BlackEarth. If we can just go through a couple of slides, please. BlackEarth is a company which we initiated back in 2018. We listed on the ASX. We put our first drill hole down in March 2018. And we sit here today with one project under construction and another one completing feasibility in October this year. The board itself and management are well qualified in terms of delivering success in the graphite space. They have experience in commercial aspects, technical aspects, Africa, project development, and of course, graphite itself. The company's market cap is currently about $27 million. Last reported cash position is $5.8 million, which is sufficient cash to not only finish the feasibility study and continue activities in Madagascar, but also to build the expandable graphite facility we're talking about in India in terms of our component of capital. So we're well positioned from a cash position, and all bodes well for the company moving forward. Next slide. So this is the company in a nutshell. We said from the outset in 2018 that we wanted to be a material player in the graphite global supply chain. And we sit here today with two assets. Our primary asset is the Mineri Graphite Project. It has all the right criteria to be a successful project. Its location, the quality of the resource and the upside that exists there, the simple metallurgy, the quality of the product and the demand, future demand for that product, as well as timing. As I said earlier, the DFS is due to be completed shortly, and the plan is to have the plant commissioned in 2024. Our second project is the downstream project, and it's really the plug-in project, but it'll start first. We recently announced the financial investment decision by the board to commit to the construction of a plant in India, and that's now underway. And we're looking to produce about 2,000 to 2,500 tonnes of expandable graphite, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. The most important thing is that we're in joint venture with a company called Metachem, which is a proven producer, 25 years experience in the industry with respect to India. We already have a binding offtake for up to 100% of the product to go to Europe. And the plant is now in final engineering, and the commissioning is planned for Q1 next year. So cash flow this time next year. The graphite market, and I'll touch on it a bit more as I go through here, but it's got a looming deficit predicted for 2023. So our timing couldn't be better in terms of the development of these two projects. We've seen some significant moves in graphite pricing over the last 6 and 12 months. And that's across the board, from the fine material, the middle-sized material, and the coarse flake material that people hear about. And of course, right behind it is the electric vehicle thematic, which is driving the strong demand in respect to graphite, natural graphite material. Next slide. As I said, the graphite market is such that at the moment, people are starting to make a lot of noise. So from an investment point of view, we've heard a lot about the likes of lithium and nickel and cobalt, etc. But graphite's about, I believe, to have its day in the sun. Quality groups such as S&P Global, International Energy Agency out of the US, and Benchmark Minerals, as well as others, including Wood Mackenzie, etc., are all talking about natural graphite, the fact that it can't be substituted in respect to lithium-ion batteries, the fact that the market could be in deficit as early as the end of this year. And you'll see that the IEA has basically predicted an increase in demand for natural graphite between 8 and 25 times from 2020 to 2040. And so where that material comes from, nobody knows, but I can tell you we're well positioned to take advantage of it. Next slide, please. Why did we go to Madagascar? Well, we went there straight up. It was a targeted exercise for us. Madagascar rates very highly in respect of the major producers of graphite worldwide. It's been producing and exporting the graphite for over 100 years, so it's got ready acceptance by end users all around the world. It's the largest supplier of graphite right now into China. It's the second largest into India, and I believe it's actually the top 3 supplier into the US. So it's well accepted as a product and deemed to be quality all round. In terms of Madagascar as well, the fiscal regime is very attractive. Corporate tax rate 20%, current royalties 2%, and unlike other places, no free carried interest. So when we quote our NPV, it's 100% BlackEarth Minerals. Next slide, please. This is just an overview. The picture on the left shows the tenement position that we have. It's about 20 square kilometres that you see there. We have a very large exploration target of 260 to 380 million tonnes over that area. To put it in context, we're looking to build a plant that's going to initially process 500,000 tonne per annum and expand it by year 4 to 1 million tonne per annum. So it gives you an idea about the prospectivity of the area and our ability to expand the plant even further in terms of throughput moving forward. We've only really explored a little bit of it, 10 to 15%, the total position. Those green areas you see on the map is all graphite outcropping, and those yellow dots you see are surface samples going 10 to 20% graphite. So the place is very rich in terms of graphite, and we have announced high-grade material, high-grade resources in that northwest area within that picture called Razafi Northwest, which is going to be our primary feed when we get started. And of course, within that area of Madagascar as well, there are other graphite developers, one being NextSource Materials out of Canada. They should be in production by fourth quarter this year. Their market capitalisation, to put it in perspective, is over $300 million, and they'll be looking to produce about 17,000 tonne per annum to start with, whereas we're looking at somewhere between 30 and 40. We also have a 40-year mining lease already granted over the majority of our mineral resources. So that positions us well in terms of future development. Next slide, please. Just a quick, I'm not going to go through all the details here, but as I said, the feasibility is targeted to be finished and released to the market in October this year. So only a matter of a few weeks away. What we've done is we've appointed key contractors and consultants who have significant graphite experience and Madagascar experience. That's why we've been able to accelerate the project as quickly as we have been able to do. Next slide. Again, from a prospectivity point of view, you'll see the graph on the right-hand side. Our first drill hole went down on March 6th, 2018, and today we sit there with about 2.5 million tonnes total contained graphite within our mineral resources. Put that in perspective, the annual production of graphite is, or supply of graphite is somewhere in the vicinity of about 1.4 to 1.5 million tonnes. So we are a material player in regards to the natural graphite space. Next slide, please. The three products that we're looking to produce are all high value, high demand products. The smaller, finer material is linked and has been tested to move into the lithium-ion battery space, which has, of course, got a lot of press. The growth outlook for there, you'll see the bottom line on the left-hand side, is envisaged to be 25 to 30% per annum growth. And that's where the majority of that growth is going to come from in terms of demand for natural graphite. And we're going to certainly play a part in that, seeing our product is going to be ultimately about 30% or so of that material. The small and medium-sized flake is going to go into the refractory industry. And when I say refractories, I'm really talking about anything to do with the smelting industry, whether it's crucibles, whether it's furnace lining and the like. So it's got a close link to global GDP, steel production and demand, nickel production, copper production, etc. So it's all linked to global GDP. So the outlook is still about 1 to 3% for that area, and that's currently the biggest consumer of graphite in the market. The large flake material, which we've got the best part of 40% of our product will be, is got a growth outlook of about 7 to 10% per annum. So very positive from our point of view and highly leveraging in terms of revenue. So to put it in perspective, a finer material is currently in the order of about $650 to $720 a tonne at the moment for about a 95% product. The medium-sized flake size for the same sort of specs is around about the $900 mark, and the large flake can be anything from sort of $1,200 to up to about $1,800. So, when you're producing a large amount of flake, it has a lot of impact, positive impact in regards to our project. Next slide, please. In terms of the ESG highlights for the project in recent times, we've designed the plant to meet Equator Principles, which we believe is fundamental towards building a sustainable project. As part of the DFS, Gold has also found no environmental, social related fatal flaws in the project, which we're very happy about, and that includes access to water as well. We're looking to incorporate a solar diesel hybrid power system for power supply, and the solar will exceed 30% of the power production. We've also assessed the potential climate change impacts of the project moving forward in respect to the severe droughts that are in place, and that could mean water access in terms of fires, etc., cyclones, etc. And we've taken all those things into account, not just for ourselves, but for the surrounding villages as well. And the company continues to train and have a focus on training Malagasy personnel, both in country, but also in Australia itself as well. And we recently had a very positive site rehabilitation report from the environmental authorities in terms of the work carried out to date. So that bodes well towards final licence and permitting approval. Next slide, please. The graphite strategy includes the expandable graphite, which I mentioned earlier. We see it as a low risk, low capex entry into an area with not a lot of competition like the lithium ion battery space. What it allows us to, total capex is $3 million US. So our portion of that $1.5 million, as I said, we're already cashed up to build that project, and we believe by October we'll be pouring concrete and putting up steel. In terms of material testing, it's been tested by tier 1 groups and also by independent laboratories. And this German laboratory in the bottom left-hand box says we could not find any restriction which would limit the application of this kind of flake graphite, which is great news and certainly fills the board with confidence moving forward. Next slide, please. The outlook for expandable graphite, which is the product that we're looking to make for out of the large flakes in India and sell into Europe, is principally aimed towards the flame retardant market. So it gets incorporated within textiles, within rubber materials, but most importantly within building cladding to prevent those high-rise fires that we've seen historically, where we've seen tragic loss of life. So it's a product that is growing in demand and really is limited by supply because the world is focusing on fine flakes to supply the battery markets. But even in China, who historically has been the biggest producer, they're running out of that coarse material, but the world needs it. And consequently, we see current attractive prices only getting better. Next slide, please. The location is going to be in Pune in India, as shown on the map. To date, you have to remember 12 months ago, we were in our initial discussions with Medichem. Today, we sit here with an initial supply agreement out of Germany to supply the plant while we wait for the Madagascar plant to be built. An offtake agreement for 100% of the product with Graphic Bergbau out of Austria has been completed. We've completed a feasibility study. We've actually acquired some land within Pune, about 5 acres in a special economic zone. So that comes with a whole lot of very attractive fiscal benefits in terms of developing and operating there. The engineering is currently ongoing, as you'll see from the pictures on the left. Survey works have commenced on site. And as I said, we believe site construction to commence in October with commissioning planned in Q1 next year. Next slide, please. So that brings us finally to news flow. So over the next 6 months, we'll be reporting on a number of things, but the key things that are going to come out, milestone moments, if you like, will be the completion of the Minera Graphite Project DFS, which, as I said, is only a matter of a few weeks ago. Construction commencing on the joint venture expandable graphite facility. Binding offtakes, legally binding offtakes for the concentrate to come out of Madagascar, which obviously will help with debt funding. Commissioning of that joint venture expandable graphite facility Q1 next year. And of course, we'll be reporting ongoing activities in respect to ESG and exploration. Next slide, please. That's the presentation. Thanks very much for your attention.
Tom, as always, it's great to have you on. We've got a few questions that have come up, so let me jump into that. So does the company plan to enter into further agreements to expand the international graphite network? And if so, how would these potentially fit in with the existing strategy?
Yeah, I think what we've deliberately done is not gone too hard, too fast in terms of offtake. The leverage, if you look at where the markets come from, say 5 years ago to where we are today, and the outlook moving forward, certainly is putting the leverage more and more onto the raw material producers, simply because of that looming deficit moving forward. We're thankful that we have David Round on our board as finance director, who's operated graphite facility in Madagascar, and he was responsible for international sales of graphite into Europe, India, Asia, and the US. So we'll be utilising his network and his skills to expand it. And as I said earlier, that's part of the next 6 months to formulate legally binding offtakes.
Wonderful. And Tom, yes, we've been following the story since 2018. It's great to see how far the company's actually come now. But I think I might just finish off with, so what are you most excited about for the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
I'm unbelievably excited about where this project's going. I've been associated with a lot of projects in the past. People who know me know that I have a strong EPC and background. And when I saw this project originally, it sort of rung out as a real standout project. for us to get to feasibility on Mineary in 4.5 years, not just in graphite, but across any commodity, it's testament to the quality people and the excitement and the enthusiasm that we have in terms of our team. So moving forward, I'm really excited about getting through the next 6 months with respect to getting the Indian project up and running and generating cash for our shareholders. And also in terms of just completing the final dotting I's, crossing T's, so we can get on with it and build this magnificent project in Madagascar moving forward and get it commissioned by 2024. That's what excites me.
Wonderful. Well, Tom, as always, thank you for joining us on Broker Briefing, and a copy of today's recording will be available online in the coming days. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jane.
So next up, we have a presentation from Anova Metals with the ticker code AWV. To tell us more about their gold exploration in Nevada, I will now hand you over to Executive Director Amanda Buckingham. Good afternoon, Amanda.
Good afternoon, Jane. Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. Let me bring up your presentation.
Great. If we could just move ahead 2 slides to the first slide. Thank you very much. So for those who don't know the Anova Metals story, we are a gold exploration company with an existing 1 million ounce gold resource in Nevada. By investing in Anova, you have exposure to arguably the 2 best provinces in the world for gold, Western Australia and Nevada, both in terms of endowment and license to operate. So our premier, or I suppose our flagship project, is in Nevada, and it's called the Big Springs project. And that's where we have the existing 1 million ounce resource. We also have a whole pipeline of targets, some drill ready, and we are actively exploring on the ground at Big Springs right now. Our secondary and very complementary project, the Warriedar Gold Project, which we actually only agreed to acquire earlier this week. So it's been a very busy, exciting week at Anova. The Warriedar Gold Project is in Western Australia. It is an early stage greenfields project, but it has high-grade drilling results from historic and recent drilling. So we've got a great set of 2 projects and a really good team to work on both those projects. Next slide, please. Our board, tight, small, diverse, market cap about 22, 23 mil, plenty of scope to grow on the back of discoveries. And we're funded. We've got enough money to carry out the exploration at both our projects in WA and Nevada in the short to medium term. Next slide. A few changes that are worth mentioning because they're very important in terms of the team that we've built. And I think you can't understate how important it is to have a strongly technical working team to explore these sort of projects. So I stepped in as MD at the beginning of July. I joined the board last October. I first became involved with Anova as a consultant. So I am a geophysicist. I came in with Steve Garwin to do a targeting study at Big Springs. And it was at that stage I recognised the value of the project and how much scope there is for serious discovery at Big Springs, and wanted to be part of it. I think the more important aspect of what we've done recently is we had recognised it was quite challenging exploring in Nevada from WA. So we have employed Steve McMillan, a very experienced Carlin geologist. He is our on-site exploration manager. He knows the lay of the land. He can deal with stakeholders. He's there. And it's already made a significant difference to how we operate. Now, before joining Anova, Steve worked for our competitor to the south, Jarrett Canyon, where he actually discovered 10 deposits for them. So I have told him he must do the same for us and then some. So it's great. We've got a superb team, we're funded, and we've got 2 great projects. Next, please. I'll take us to Nevada first and on to the next. Before we look at Big Springs, and you can see where Big Springs sits on that map, it is worth just pausing and actually appreciating the size of the prize in Nevada. It is serious gold country. There is gold, I shouldn't say everywhere, but there is gold. And not only a lot of gold, there are giants. It is serious elephant country. If you look at the Carlin trend, which is labelled there, but you've got the Betsy Post deposit labelled in the bright orange. I think that 2011 was the end of production there. At that single deposit, there was 40 million ounces of gold produced. So we are in serious gold territory. Our belt, the Independence Trend, the one striking north-south, you can see there, the existing gold mining complex is called Jerritt Canyon. And if we go to the next slide. Now, since 1981, Jerritt Canyon has produced over 10 million ounces of gold. Now, our tenure abuts the Jerritt Canyon tenure. We are direct neighbours. There's been a lot of exploration at Jerritt Canyon, hardly any systematic modern exploration at our tenement, apart from the northern area where we have the existing million-ounce resource. So there is serious potential for additional gold resources on our ground. Another advantage of being right next to Jerritt Canyon is they have a roaster that our ore is compatible with. So we've got access to a mill, we've got a well-endowed belt, and we've got a prime land holding in that belt right next to Jerritt Canyon. Jerritt Canyon is held by First Majestic. I think they have a current market cap of about 2.75 billion, which is also something to aspire to. Next slide, please. Moving into our particular project. So the Big Springs project, it was actually producing until 93. Since then, the current Anova management team took over in about 2020. We applied what I believe to be the right strategy. We collected the right data. We carried out optimized, very well-constrained targeting. We have a whole pipeline of targets across our tenure. Now, most of them have not yet been drill tested, and that's what we're working towards at the moment. We, in the last 2 years, next slide, please. In the last 2 years, we've been drilling around the existing deposit. And what we would like to do in the next drill season next year is actually expand that and drill test some of these high priority targets that we have defined and optimized over the last few years. It is worth just having a look at the history of Big Springs. And I know there's just a lot of words on a page, but there's been a huge amount of work done. And we're at the stage now where we're leveraging off all the work that has gone before us, and we're leveraging off the optimized targeting that has been done. And the fact that most of the ground has not been explored, and we have drill-ready targets that we will systematically work through over the next year and a half. Next slide, please. I wanted to show this example because I've mentioned several times that we did a targeting study. And this was the first time that we drill tested one of the targets from the study. And it came in. It was one of our discoveries from last year. So we carried out the targeting study. We identified this Crusher Zone South as a structural intersection. We did the mapping on site and identified the appropriate Carlin-style alteration. We drilled it. We got, 27 metres at 2.4 grams, and we identified sulfide alteration. So we've got a tool. We can use IP to look for more sulfide mineralisation. The whole process has been validated. This is exactly what we're going to do across the broader tenement in terms of following up and drilling our additional targets. Next slide, please. So what are we doing this year at Big Springs? There's actually a lot happening. We've got Steve on site. We actually applied for some new claims where we had some good geochemical anomalies from last year's work. We have done a trial IP survey. The results were very encouraging. We're currently doing a soil sampling program down at our Golden Dome prospect. You can see that in the southern part of the tenure labelled. And our young geologist Kyle is out mapping. And by that, I mean all the targets that we would like to drill, we're doing on-site mapping to look for indications, jasperoid alteration, the right Carlin-style alteration and rock types to just refine and optimise those drill targets. Next slide, please. Actually, that's Kyle in the photo there on the left. He's young, he's fit, he's out mapping for us. And you can see on the right, I'm just showing one line of our IP results. The reason I show this is that that line was collected over the South Sami deposit, the high-grade part of our existing resource. And you can see bottom right, there's a clear red blob. What that means is that the IP has worked in the sense that it is directly detecting the disseminated sulfides associated with our mineralization, just giving us a nice tool that we can use and apply across the broader tenement package to look for more disseminated sulfides. Next slide, please. At the moment, we're doing quite an extensive soil sampling program at the Golden Dome prospect. Now, this area is looking really interesting. We have recently mapped the Royal We, it's actually Kyle out in the field. We've mapped lower plate rocks outcropping at Golden Dome. Now, they are the rocks that host the gold at Jarrett Canyon to the south. There's 10 million ounces of gold at Jarrett Canyon, and we've got the same rocks outcropping at Golden Dome. We've got structures that come from Jarrett Canyon up through our tenure. We've got very limited historic drilling. We've basically got this underexplored area with great soils, the right alteration, the right rocks, the right structures, undrilled. So we will be focusing more on Golden Dome in the next 18 months. It's turning out to be a very promising prospect. Next, please. Moving on to WA, hot off the press. Our team is very excited. So we have agreed to acquire the Warriedar project. We actually were looking for quite a while, and we had quite stringent criteria in terms of what style of deposits or ground we would like to pick up. So we wanted the area to be a proven area, sitting in the right neighbourhood. We wanted to make sure gold had travelled through the rocks. So this area, it has historic, shallow, high-grade gold. It has ore-grade historic gold. So it's, when you're looking for gold, one of the key criteria, you need gold to have travelled through the rocks. And, whether or not it stops in a certain location depends on the other conditions. But this project is fertile for gold, and we've got really great historic and recent results. But it also ticks the box of being relatively underexplored. So there's significant potential for uplift and realising the value here. And for a company like Anova, a significant discovery is really important. It's the primary path to really increasing value for our shareholders. And that's what we are focused on. We have a very technically sound, experienced management team focused on discovery at both Warriedar and Big Springs. So actually the next slide, please. I'll just show you the prospects. There are three main prospects at Warriedar. The one that we are going to focus on is the most westerly, the Reeds Ridge to Commodore prospect area. And there's a significant shear running through there. You've got shallow, high-grade gold, drilling results by Red Dirt last year that were very encouraging. Most of the area has not been drilled. We've got intrusive, porphyry intrusives coming up into the shear. We've got a great model for gold, and actually not just gold. If you look at our neighbourhood, we've got copper. It's really a polymetallic play here. And that's what I'll be, as a geophysicist, I love a bit of copper as well. So to me, it's very much a copper gold play. And then we've got Lang's Find and the other prospects that we will also follow up. But our focus will be on Reeds Ridge and Commodore immediately. Next slide, please. And actually move on to the final one. Thank you. So where are we at? I would say Anova is in a fantastic position. We've got a really strong technical team, a good board with good corporate experience. We've got two great projects in Tier 1 gold provinces. We've got funds to explore about both our projects, an established million-ounce resource in Nevada. And I think most importantly, with Warriedar coming online this week, the team is really excited about where we're headed. And we would love you to be part of our evolving story. So thank you.
Amanda, what a great presentation. Thanks for giving us an update. We've had a few questions, so let me jump into them. So in terms of the drilling season for next year, what period does this run over and when can shareholders expect results?
Very good question. So we have only earlier this week agreed to acquire Warriedar. But we would like to be drilling at Warriedar this year if possible. I think there are no guarantees. There's a few things that have to play out, but we would like to be drilling at Warriedar in Western Australia in November, December. It may be February. In terms of Big Springs in Nevada, we are working hard to refine the drill targets this year with a view to drill as soon as we can next year. But in Nevada, that's not until July, August that you're actually allowed to drill. So having Warriedar, it gives us that immediate news flow in terms of drilling, with Big Springs close behind next year.
Thank you. And just the mineral resource estimate. So you mentioned that there would be an update. So what percentage upgrade are you targeting and when are you expecting to announce this?
Good point. So that is in progress at the moment. We expect to have that 2022 update finished by the end of this quarter, so the end of September.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us again today. And a copy of today's presentation will be available online on brokerbriefing.com and on the Broker Briefing YouTube days in the coming days. But thank you for joining us again.
Thanks, Jane.
Finally, we're joined by Martin Holland, the Executive Chairman and MD of Cobre Limited, with the ticker code CBE, to tell us more about their copper exploration in Botswana and their recent outstanding drill results. Martin is joining us. So good afternoon, Martin.
Okay, how are you?
Oh, good, thank you. You're a little bit soft there.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, that's better.
Better?
Much. Well, Martin, sorry, firstly, congratulations on the new copper discovery in Botswana. Can you tell us a little bit more about the scale opportunity here?
Yeah, sure, Jane. So this is going to be like a short and sweet presentation. I'm going to be talking at Africa Down Under on Tuesday next week, and there'll be a new presentation that comes out to the market. So this will just be a high-level sort of understanding on the new discovery that's happened in Botswana at the moment. So to answer your question, in regards to scale and the opportunity, you're talking 8,000 square kilometres of the Kalahari Copper Belt, which has been regarded by the US Geological Survey as the #1 belt in the world to explore for sedimentary hosted copper deposits. So we've got a very solid holding there. And our neighbours, there's two neighbours, one being Sandfire that's going into production next year, and also Tribute Canyon that's already in production. So you've got two giant companies, which is adjacent to the new discovery that Cobre has made.
And just on that then, so you've recently announced some outstanding copper intersections of the project. So can you tell us a little bit more about these results?
Yeah, sure. So there was a terra leach soil anomaly above the surface, and that was the tool and the vectoring that we did to target in on this new discovery. The first hole we drilled was 1 kilometre away from the old historical hole, which showed around 1.8% copper. We stepped out 1 kilometre. We hit quite a thick intersection of copper mineralization. We then stepped out a second hole, another kilometre to the southwest. We hit the intersection again over quite a thick interval. We stepped out another kilometre. So I should probably highlight here, we're actually exploring like the same way that BHP would explore as a junior. So quite large step outs. And then we hit it again, quite thick mineralization again, and showing quite high grade copper on the XRF results that we've done. After those 3 step outs to the southwest, we decided to go 1 kilometre to the northeast, and we hit it again, which we announced to the market. So now we have a 4 kilometre strike of copper mineralization that in the Kalahari Copper Belt, some of the largest deposits in the area are roughly on a 4 kilometre strike, such as Zone 5. And Zone 5 is 92 million tonnes at 2.2% copper.
And so just on the exploration program, so can you tell us a little bit more about what's currently underway, what it aims to achieve and when we can expect more results?
Sure, so we're currently drilling at the moment. The rig is currently on hole 5 at present. This hole that we're drilling is a 70-metre step back from one of the centre holes that we drill. And the reason that we're doing this is to understand the width and the lateral extent of the deposit. So this will give the market a really clear understanding on the size from a width and lateral perspective. After this, we will move towards infill drilling, which will be 500-metre spacings. And then after that, we move towards 250-metre spacings. We're aligned with a company called Mitchell's Drilling, which is an international drilling company. They recently participated in the raise themselves at $300,000 US. The majority of their rigs are actually on site at Sandfire and Cryptic Canyon. So they've got 26 rigs in country. Having them aligned with us is helpful. So we're going to be getting like an additional rig shortly and multiple more as we drill this out.
Well, you just partly answered my next question, but so you've recently raised $7 million through a placement to both domestic and international funds. So in addition to the drilling company, who else has come in, and what will the funds raised be used for?
Yeah, sure. So there was $7 million raised and an additional, as I said, around 300,000 US on top of that from the drillers. We got international investors. It has been announced in the top 20 that we got Commodity Discovery as our third largest shareholder now, which is a very well-known company in discoveries. We have Metal Tiger as well, which is our largest shareholder, which is a resource fund that put in around $1.5 million. So it's heavily supported by the current existing shareholders and also new shareholders that came in. I'll probably touch on as well, just in regards to further exploration that we're doing. It's probably worth noting that we have a 500-kilometre strike here in the Kalahari Copper Belt. And this is the first target that we've drilled out of 57 that we've identified. So like you've seen in Zone 5, there is 92 million tonnes in one area, but they also have 4 other areas that are between 20 and 40 million tonnes separately. So what we're trying to achieve here is we've got a tool that we're using that's proven to be successful to actually vector in on these targets. But we have 57 other areas that we're looking at advancing. We've just commenced a 7,000 meters sample program to look at vectoring into new targets. So in parallel of proving up this deposit, we're going to be vectoring in and scout drilling on other targets throughout the 500-kilometer strike that we have in the Kalahari Copper Belt.
Thanks, Marty. A few more coming through. So maybe some you might be able to answer, but with Sandfire and other majors operating in the area, have you had anybody reach out to you off the back of the drilling success?
Well, unfortunately, that's completely confidential.
Yes, I thought so. Very cheeky webinar attendee here. Another one's popped up. So there's 4 kilometers of strike, which is amazing. How does this compare to Sandfire's strike?
Yeah, so Sandfire's deposit is slightly different to this. So the big 3 that they're looking at, this is more like a Zone 5. But the strike length on Sandfire, I don't know exactly, it's probably like a few kilometers long. But I think investors should really look at Zone 5 as a comparison to what we've found here. And you can go onto the website and have a look at that.
Martin, just a few questions on the team. So we understand that you have a new team on the ground, found the Kamoa deposit. So can you give us a little bit more background on the team that you've got in country? Yeah,
so Dr. Ross McGowan, he got the Lindsay Award for the discovery of Kamoa, which is the largest copper discovery pretty much in Africa. That's what's owned by Ivanhoe, which is now a $10 billion plus company. So he's on our team. We also have a person by the name of Adam Woolridge, who's the in-country CEO, who's been involved in this belt for a long time. David Cattrall, who's regarded as one of the best sedimentary hosted copper deposit geologists in the world, on the team as well. We've also lined up a company called RES, who's our operational team in country. They pretty much get appointed by Rio Tinto and Anglo to do all their work in Africa. So we couldn't have a stronger, technical and operational team in country.
Just another one popped up. So Cupric Canyon's Zone 5 mineralization, goes almost 1 kilometer deep. Do you expect similar depth extent?
We'll actually know this with the current hole that we're doing. So this is to test the vertical, lateral, and width size of it all. But there's no reason why it can't go down to 1 kilometer deep.
Another one. So although there are numerous other areas that the company can target, is there an opportunity to further expand the land holding base based on drilling success?
We've got 8,000 square kilometres. We've got more than enough land holding. We've got 500 kilometres of strike. It's like we've got a major position here of the contact, and we own pretty much the majority of the contact all the way throughout the belt.
Another one's just popped up. Sorry. So do you see value in trying to extend the current strike to 5, 6, or 7 kilometres?
Yeah, there's definitely value in that. But the question is, like, how big do you need it? 4 kilometres can hold some of the largest deposits in the Kalahari. But saying that, we are going to extend. So in this infill program, we are looking to put another 500-metre hole to the southwest and to the northeast, which will increase the strike by 5 kilometres. if it remains open, then obviously we'll continue to advance the strike length potential that this deposit has.
Thanks, Marty. Sorry, there's quite a few coming through. So does the company have plans for community engagement?
Yes, definitely. The company is all about stakeholder engagement. We deal with the operational team in country on a daily basis. And we actually have a lot of local people working for the company at present. So yes, it is definitely on our agenda and also actioned at present.
Wonderful. I might actually just one last question for you. So what are you most excited about?
Well, I think what's really exciting is the sector as a whole is turning around. So copper is a hugely required commodity in this new EV world that we're moving towards. I think exploration should be considered by investors as an ethical investment, because without exploration, there's no new discoveries and there's no pathway to decarbonisation by 2050. So I think from a personal perspective, I really like that. I also like that this asset itself was found by a person by the name of Terry Gremmer, who I had about a 10-year relationship with. He passed away a year and a half ago. He was on the board of Kalahari Metals when he passed away, the company that Cobre now owns. He was involved with 4 major discoveries such as Jubilee, Cosmos, Western Areas, Sirius with Nova, and also Mod Resources, and organised the takeover with Carl Simic at Sandfire on that. And they're obviously a larger shareholder through Metal Tiger. So having that sort of legacy there as well, knowing that he's been on the ground for 10 years, spoke to him every week for that period, and to now unlock this deposit itself, it's going to be named the Gremmer deposit after him. But that gives me a lot of excitement personally.
Wonderful. Well, Martin, again, congratulations on the great results. And if we have missed any questions, please feel free to reach out to Martin directly via the contact details on the bottom of their ASX releases. But thanks again for joining us.
Great. Thanks, Jane. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for joining us today. Recordings of today's presentations will be available online in the coming days on brokerbriefing.com and on our Broker Briefing YouTube page. But thanks again.